It's that time of the week again, bitch. That's right. You're welcome to another ridiculous episode of Old School New School Comedy Podcast. And I am your host, the shit-talking Christy Miller. And with me this week is a new school jack. And you know me, I hate everybody. So there's not many people I like, but there's a few new jacks that I really love, and they have something. And this is one of them. You can see him hosting the very popular Comedy Fight Club at the Stand, the Bowery Electric. They have a big YouTube show. I've done it a couple of times. I won one and got murdered on the other. It was fun. It's a lot of fun. He's probably one of the best roast battle hosts I've watched, and it's very talented. And he also has a podcast called The Buff Boys that you need to check out. So I want to introduce to you Maran.
What's up? Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for being here.
The introduction. Actually, we're now at room 52 with Fight Club. We move around a lot. So if you follow the Instagram page, you'll see wherever we're going.
That's right, we're at room 52.
Yeah, we just started doing it.
I'm 100 years old. I can pay attention.
Within the last 2 months, we've done Bowery Electric and the Stand also. We'll probably be back at both of those at some point. We're a little bit nomadic. Right now, our home is room 52.
Nice.
And the shows have been fun there. It's a new venue. It's kind of hidden, almost like a speakeasy.
Oh, I love
it. It's like on East 52nd Street. It's like in between a deli and a restaurant. You have to go up the stairs, take the elevator to the third floor.
Oh, that's sad.
And then it's like a nice room with red curtains, and we're just calling each other gay and whatever. It's way too nice for us.
But the funny thing is like I always tell people that this time around, our roaring 20s, after the pandemic in 1919, the roaring 20s prohibition was alcohol. And speakeasies were popular and everything was underground and illegal. Now, comedy's become the new prohibition.
Going to be, I like that.
We are the new prohibition. You can't say that. You're going to get canceled. Just shut the fuck up.
I like in the 20s, like the president at the time, Warren Harding, was like throwing parties with alcohol secretly during prohibition.
Of course.
So I like the idea of like Joe Biden's having secret comedy shows with like Shane Gillis. So all the edgy comedy is secretly going on still in the White House.
That's amazing. Or he's actually hidden like George Carlin and Lenny Bruce. They're all on ice, and he takes them out like Walt Disney and makes them do stand-up.
Or just Hunter Biden is just an 80s comic.
Well, he has a description of it. He's coked up, and he's an idiot, and his dad is just like embarrassed by him, like every parent has an embarrassing drug addict kid.
Every news story about Hunter Biden sounds like a podcast story Mark Maran tells about Sam Kinison.
That is such a great analogy of it. I always say Hunter Biden is what the Comedy Store was in the 80s.
Yep, there you go.
If the Comedy Store in the 80s was a person, it's Hunter Biden.
Yes.
So that's how cool Hunter is.
Absolutely.
I love Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
He's such a pimp.
Every story that comes out, because all the people who get upset about stuff like that are the kind of people that would be bad comedy audience members.
Oh, yeah, they're the kinds that cuss out,
Yeah, so whenever someone's like, can you believe he did this? At this point, I'm just like, I cannot wait to hear what it is that he did.
I'm excited to hear. Well, I've got to see what he's going to do next.
Exactly.
You got two fans right here, Hunter.
Yes.
You fucking playa.
Yeah.
It's so funny. People get upset over stupid shit. So, you've been how long you been doing stand-up now?
A little over 10 years now. I graduated college in 2012, and I started doing some stuff I started doing some stuff during my senior year of college.
Nice.
And then once I graduated, when I started like hitting the mics and everything, but I mean, it's the first year or so, I had no idea what I was doing even. It was like, I mean, nobody does, but at least like now, people who started in the last few years, there's open micers with podcasts. Like you can hear a little bit about the new thing. I was Googling how to be a comedian. I didn't know that open mics were a thing. I didn't know.
And you started in 2012? That's about right, because you got to grow up in the tech age. I started in 1995.
Yeah.
So the only way I was ever going to learn, because I wanted to do it since I was 5.
Yeah.
Or 7 or whatever it was. And I got to LA. I lived in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I moved to Los Angeles. And my best friend, she's like, Kira, she goes, if you don't go down to the Comedy Store and do a mic, I'm going to punch you in your face.
Yeah.
And so I said, all right, fine. So I said, I'll go get a job as a waitress.
Yeah.
And if I get the job as a cocktail waitress, then that means I have to do stand-up. If I don't get the job, then that means I'm not supposed to do it and I have to go in another direction.
Okay.
So I got the job probably in like 25 seconds.
Yeah.
And I was in, all of a sudden I was working, I was doing shit. So it was like, it was meant to be. But back then, that was the only way I knew how to ask, was go to the comedy club and be a waitress. So, and then you started in 2012. So you're like Googling at the time, but
seeing what open mics are.
2015, 2013, 2014, when podcasts and
there were
TikTok and Instagram.
I mean, that stuff's even almost newer. I felt like the first
totally.
So I mean, for up until the pandemic, almost it felt like everything was Facebook and Facebook groups.
Yeah,
like all Comedy Fight Club had a Facebook group, and that was like. Every comic was in the Facebook group. It was almost like a network. Like the networking things were all on Facebook. You could post a joke. Another comic could post something on Facebook, and you can post a comment making fun of them, and you knew every comic in the scene was going to see your comment. Yeah, you can get all the likes. You were almost kind of performing for comic.
Yeah, you were headlining and
a little bit like. Because now with Instagram and TikTok, it's so segmented. Yeah. Like, you could post a thing on Instagram, and it's like, you have to be following every single... In Facebook, everyone was just friends. Yeah. It was a little bit more community to it.
Yeah, and that was what it was made for.
Yeah. And now with, like, the Instagram Reels and everything, that's still, like, you know, for even starting in 2012, where there was YouTube and there was some technology, it still wasn't quite where every single person is posting a new clip every day.
Well, I remember back then, too, like, when I started, like, when Adam Carolla left The Man Show. Yeah. And he started a podcast. Yeah. And it was the biggest podcast. It was like, oh, he has a podcast? Because back then, radio was dead. Yeah. And I did radio. Yeah. And I used to do radio, and I love radio. Radio is one of my favorite things. Yeah. And because I have a face for it. Good night. And an act for it, too. Nobody wants to hear you. But radio was dying out. So when podcasts came out, I'm like, wait a minute, that's like radio? But it's not radio. It's not on the... Okay. So, but Adam Carolla was the biggest thing in the world, that everybody wanted to be him. And then, like, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, Joe Rogan would bring his camera, his big old video camera, to the Comedy Store, and he would just film everything. Him and Eddie Bravo would just film everything. Yeah. And then I left L.A. in 2005, came here, and then that's when Joe was, like, really starting, like, the technology was starting to grow. Right. Yeah. So Joe had he had his finger on the pulse at that moment, and already had popularity from Fear Factor and news radio, and then he blows up, and now everybody's a fucking podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for a while it felt like everyone had a podcast. Now it feels like a lot of people still do, but not quite everybody. I remember it used to feel like I would go into any bar show or an open mic, and I'm like, there's 17 different people here, and 15 of them have a podcast. It's not quite that many. But I also always wanted to do all the comics, like, podcasts, even if it's just, like, an open micer who's only got his family watching. Well, my thought is, one, if they quit, maybe their friends or family remember that you maybe pick up another
everybody's podcast.
Pick up another follower. And also... So much of what's the first time you do a major podcast, if you impress on that, that's going to get you a lot more followers to come see your stand-up. You should be, if you're spending every single night just working on your tight five, you should also be working on being an entertaining podcast guest. Yeah. Like, that's also a skill you should develop. Talk for an hour and be interesting. A lot of comics can't do that.
No, you're 100% right. Yeah. And they can't. They get a lot of comics get uncomfortable with silence. Yeah. So, like, you see a comic late night and there's like 3 people in the audience. All they focus on is the empty chairs. I'm like, play to the tables that are there, you fucking dick.
I used to do late night here. But in general, I always hate whenever any comedian gets on stage and it's almost like they're too much of a coward to try and bomb. Yeah. So they have to talk about how terrible this room is and how this is sad, this is whatever. So then when they bomb, they can be like, oh, well, I tried.
The room's fault.
I always go up with the energy that I'm going to try and do well, with a positive attitude. And if I do bad, if it doesn't work, okay, I swung and missed. But you gotta fucking go for it. Don't be a bitch about it.
Listen, when I started, Paul Mooney took me under his wing within the minute I met him. And when I met...
He thought you were a guy?
Pretty much.
That's
hey, you're a dude, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, is that...
But I was a big fan of his.
Is that known that he's gay? That's out there, right? That he was gay?
It wasn't out, but we just knew. He would never tell me.
I'm now...
like a father to me.
Right. I think now kind of online. I don't think I'm breaking that.
Well, the fact that when he passed away,
yeah.
all these comics started coming out and saying it. Like, where were you when he was alive, you bitch? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And all the people that used to talk shit about him
Yeah.
are coming out, oh, he was a legend. He was a godfather.
Of course,
I go, go fuck yourself. You weren't there. I watched you, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I watched how you treated him because I was telling my girl Eleanor, because we were both waitresses together in the 90s. And, and one slip of a conk and she gets, whatever. Anyway, I love her. That's my homie. Yeah. I love Eleanor. I'm so fucking proud of her. I told her, I said, those years with Mooney really hurt my career.
Yeah.
Because Mooney was so hated at that point.
Yeah.
Because he was older and bitter and the dementia was kicking in and he would just tell people to go fuck themselves, and I'd be like, Mooney, stop! You can't get the check first,
and then you
sign the contract, get it aired, and then cuss him out.
And because you're like,
I'm affiliated, I'm his mentor. He's my mentor, and I'm his feature. All of a sudden, it became like she's like him, guilty by association. So by the time we split in 2012, when he got really sick, and all the hangers-on, all the vultures pushed me out of his life. And blocked me from him. So that's a whole nother that hurts. My heart still hurts for that because he was like my father. Yeah. So I said, when they did that, I went to the clubs like, okay, now I'm out of his shadow. I can, because I was working every week at Caroline's. I had a cushy gig. Yeah. So I'd go to the clubs and they're like, oh yeah, you open for Paul Mooney? Yeah, you're a little too rough for our room. Associating me with him
just because
I opened for him. And I'm like, how am I kidding me? So it hurt me and it pulled me out of the clubs. Yeah. So I had to start over. So I did the Jerry Seinfeld, threw the whole act away. Yeah. And I just started going in and doing spots with nothing and just writing and writing and writing and recreating a new layer of me. Yeah. And it was probably, I was so upset by that, but at the same time, it was probably one of the most greatest experiences, and I'm thankful for. Yeah. Because I'm who I am today because of it. Right. So, but yeah, it hindered my career a lot.
Yeah, it's tough in general when you're new in comedy. I mean, Paul Mooney's like a legend, but there's some people who, when you're new in comedy, you think anybody who has anything is a big deal. I've seen so many comedians just look at somebody who actually is a nobody, but they book one show somewhere and they're a fucking asshole. They're just treat people badly, creep around women, whatever it is. Yep. And so many new comedians think that they have power. And the thing is, though, they start kind of putting up with all that bullshit, but then all the other comics who know better see you and now start thinking about you, like, you...
It's guilty by birds of a feather.
And there is, and I mean, you with Paul Mooney, I wouldn't necessarily think anything of because he's a fucking legend, but when it's suddenly...
You're a comic and you're smart.
Yes. But there are some comics who it's like when they're buddying up to certain people in comedy who don't have any power and just are really shitty, it becomes a little bit like if you associate with shit, you start to smell a little. Yeah. It's like, this person is so shitty and you have to know. Yeah. You're enabling them for a spot at a sandwich shop on a Wednesday night. What are you doing?
That's our show. No, but you've nailed it so good. I love it. I love it because it's people like, oh yeah, they have something going. They got some heat around them, someone to buddy up with them. But you know what? They're a piece of shit. Yeah. And they're really not as big as you think they are.
100%.
Yeah, they may have a lot of followers on Instagram or TikTok, but they can walk out. No one knows who the fuck they are. Yeah. But if Paul Mooney or Eddie Murphy or George Carlin or Andrew Dice Clay walk out, they know who the fuck they are.
That's the event. If someone like that is an asshole and you kind of put up with it, I get it. But some of the people I see people put up with, I'm like, for that fucking idiot?
Exactly. Well, because I grew up at the Comedy Store. So like Dice and Mooney and all them were like on me at the minute. It was 95 when I got there. So, Dice took a liking to me and I got to work with him a little bit. And then when I moved here, we kind of parted ways. And then we got back in touch with each other in 2019. Yeah. Was it? Yeah. And then I did some shows, started working with him again. Then COVID hit. Yeah. And now it's just him and Eleanor, which is fine because I love, they're both dear. They're like my family. And Dice is like my brother, but it's like, people think Dice is such a fucking asshole, or it's Andrew Dice Clay. He thinks I go, that dude is the sweetest.
Everything I've ever heard personally, people who know him is
because I tell him he gave Paul Mooney his big break.
Yeah.
on his pay-per-view specials.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
on his
Okay,
second one
yeah.
he did. He made them put Mooney on
Yeah.
because he loved him so much.
Yeah.
And so dayz, and I told him, I said, you and Paul are so much alike because people have this one misconception about you.
Yeah.
You're a womanizer, you're a piece of shit, you're a scumbag, you're this, you're that, but you're like Mooney was the kindest, most generous.
Yeah.
Same with dayz. And then like Mooney, if he had $5 and you had nothing, he'd give you the $5 because he thought, I'll just make more money. And he didn't care. He loved to help people. dayz is the same way.
And the two of them they're both aggressive enough on stage that I think that could be where some of that comes from.
Yeah. Well, it's me too. I mean, I'm a fucking asshole.
And there's always going to be people, whatever your performance is, people are going to, that's how they know you.
Yeah.
So that's going to impact how they view who you actually are.
Exactly.
And it's not that it's a complete, we're not Hassan Menaging it up there. But
Good night.
it's not a complete act, but it's a part of who you are.
Well, to tell you the truth, I had an envelope of anthrax the other day, and I was very upset, and my sister got my kids, and Christy, you don't have any kids. Oh, that technicality. Oh, I lied. My bad.
Whoops.
Whoopsie.
In my emotionally true mind, I have kids.
Only the ones I dated. Good night. What? What am I, Chris D'Elia?
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
But in some ways, I'm kind of glad that the Instagram Reels and everything world wasn't there when I very first started, because I would have felt so much pressure to put stuff up like that my first few years in comedy, I just got on stage and wrote more jokes.
Yeah.
There wasn't any, I never thought about what would be a clippable clip, joke, anything. I just got better at writing and stand-up.
Yeah.
And now I do feel like part of the game is the social media of it. My social media would be like a joke I would post on Facebook, and then if it did well, maybe try and make it a bit or do it on stage. But it was always still kind of focused on stand-up and writing. Now it really is like so much of the time that could be dedicated towards just building your stand-up does have to be built towards being an editor.
Yeah, it's a whole new world now.
Yeah.
And like back then, we would just write every night. Like, at the Comedy Store, you'd have 15-minute sets, and it's pass the baton. We bring each other up. So you'd start strong, throw your new shit in the middle, end strong. Boom. So if it bombed, nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
And then you worked on it, but we had so much time and such quality time that we were able to write. And that's a huge thing for me being, I'm 28 years in this game.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, well, there's no star power behind you. You must be washed up and nothing. And it's like, no, I didn't suck anybody's dick.
And also, most people who are making a living and working and doing stand-up comedy, most people will never know.
Yeah.
That's just all.
We work the road.
Yeah.
That's how our bread and butter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great comics I work the road with that no one will ever hear of.
Yeah.
And they sell out everywhere they go.
Yeah.
Theaters.
Yeah.
And shit. And they're monsters on the road.
Yeah.
But they're not city club comics.
Yeah.
And that's there's whole different layers of mastery of this craft.
Yeah, because there's also city club comics who are the absolute best here, but they could not do an hour on the road.
They can't. They would die.
Yeah.
And then there's also road comics that murder on the road.
Yeah.
Things are a lot more forgiving on the road.
Yes.
With hacky shit.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they come to the clubs and they just stare at them like, what the fuck? What is this, 1988?
Yeah, I know. I have a fun story. Maybe after I'll tell you who it is, but I don't.
Tell me.
I like them in there. I like them and they're nice. But there was a.
They're all nice fuckers.
There was a comic who was more so of a road guy. I met him like when I first year doing comedy. I did like one of those like bringer competitions. Again, I didn't even know what a bringer was. I didn't know any. It was a Broadway comedy club.
Why you did it? Because you didn't know.
Exactly. And it was like they do a comedy contest. After your set, they would ask the crowd to cheer for you. Right. They held out a decibel measurer, and whoever got the highest reading would be the winner. So then I had a really good set. My cheer wasn't as loud as my set was, but everyone was there to cheer for the people they were there for.
Yeah.
So the two people who came in like first, second, third place, it was like someone who had 30 people there and someone else whose friends were sitting closest to where the decibel measurer was.
Oh my, yeah, that's
But one of the guys who I met there, big fat guy, does a lot of road stuff. Don't see him for like another 2 years. This one I've been doing it a couple years. I'm one of the better people at open mics, which isn't much, but it's like there is some progress. I'm like, I walk into a room of open micers, and there's some level of this is a funny guy.
Yeah, there's some level of respect because you actually work towards it.
Yeah. This guy who I think has just been doing road stuff, I haven't seen him since, comes to a mic in the city. and he's a big fat guy, and he opens his set with so I just got back from the gym, and nobody gives him anything 'cause he's a big fat guy.
Yeah.
Just went to the gym, get it? And yeah, he doesn't get a reaction, and immediately has the most flustered look on his face. I could tell he had never had. He's like, that didn't work. He had no idea what to do when that joke didn't
Open
work.
micers don't pay attention.
Yeah, that's
They're
it.
too busy worried about their set.
Yeah.
Like, you think, I love when people do crowd work at open mic.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a show about crowd work at open mic.
Yeah.
Do like a reality show and fall and just
Yeah.
like, shut up.
Yeah. If anything, I have at times referenced a thing that someone else said at the mic. Actually, for a while, I just started not having an opening joke, and I would just listen to the comics before me and open with a riff on something just to challenge myself.
Yeah.
I have to come up with something in the moment.
Yeah.
And I had a comic once tell me, like, you're the only person I've ever seen do crowd work well at an open mic. I'm like, it wasn't crowd. I wasn't asking people what they do for a living like that.
Yeah.
But I was referencing stuff in the room, which a lot of times at open mics, people will just do their material and won't even do that.
Yep.
So there's like a way to, but I mean, yeah, when people just start real crowd working,
Yeah.
it can be tough. I've seen some comics do it at an open mic, and it's fun because with comics, you're not asking what they do for work. You just ask some weird shit.
Yeah.
Like, what's your favorite porn or something like that.
Who did your mom fuck to get this thing in front of me?
Yeah.
And, but it's like, I did for someone I was friends with, I'm not friends with anymore, have an open mic. They had an open mic at the Stand.
Yeah.
And she was out of town, and she asked me to run it for her.
Yeah.
And she goes, just keep the cash. It's yours, but just keep it going.
Yeah.
Okay. I killed,
Yeah.
but it was just berating them, yelling at them, telling them they sucked, helping them with their act.
Yeah.
And building confidence in them. And some, like, people would just cower because they don't have the 10,000 hours to be an expert.
Yeah.
They don't have the hours, the odometer on stage.
Yeah.
To like not have any fucking feelings and just go up there raw and not worry about who's not reacting.
Yeah, exactly.
And just be able to. And I always tell them, use the open mic as a recorder. Listen to it out loud. See how the rhythm is. Don't worry about the reaction. Listen to it, and you'll know if it's something. If you really know who you are,
Exactly.
you'll know if it's going to work or not. And then you try it in a real audience, but you sound it out. You play with it. You piece it together, and then go. But they're so scared of bombing at open mics. I'm like, this is the place to bomb.
I think just when you're new, you haven't ever experienced things like that. Even so before I grew up in athletics, I was always playing sports growing up.
You did wrestling, right?
So I did amateur wrestling, and I got recruited into like the pro wrestling circuit.
Nice.
And that was the first like kind of performance art.
That's
really
a huge performance. That helped you a lot.
Yeah, because I did that for about 3 or 4 years. It was when I was in college. And so the first time I did comedy, bombing still doesn't feel good. But I was playing the villain when I was wrestling. I already had a fan jump over a guardrail trying to attack me in the middle of a show before I ever did stand up.
You know what? I've had the same thing happen as a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you.
Yeah, I was the villain. I was like a fucking cocky, jacked up 19, 20-year-old kid. So I went hard.
That's what you're supposed to do. Everything is so amplified and exaggerated. That's fun.
Yeah, and in hindsight, there were things I said I probably didn't need to say.
No, you did.
Yeah, I mean, they worked, but I mean, but also times where guys would wait to fight me after shows. At this point, I would never do that. 19, 20-year-old Matt was like, fucking, I'll kick his ass and fuck his girlfriend. But yeah, so coming from that world into comedy, it still is like a nerve-wracking thing of like, because especially with open mics in New York, like pro wrestling, you're working with the crowd. There is no crowd at most of the shows you're doing. These late night with 2 people or anything. Mm-hmm. So it's just like the writing and performance, but it's like, it takes getting used to. I didn't have like the fear of bombing, but I did, I didn't want to, no one wants to bomb.
No one wants to bomb, but bombing is so important.
Yeah.
Because it really helps check you and go over all the checklists of things that you could have done, what you could have done better, what you shouldn't have done, what you could have done worse.
Yeah.
What worked, what didn't work. But bombing, I always had it, like at the Comedy Store, I always called it my dirty dozen.
Yeah.
Like every 12, 13 sets,
I'd
have a shitty one. And then all the rest would be monsters. And it was always like when I would take chances and play risks, or if I was too in my head. And most of the time I was just too in my head thinking of shit, or something was going on in my personal life and I couldn't leave it at the door.
Yeah.
And it's my fault. I always take responsibility for the crowd, because it's never the crowd. I've only been like in 1 or 2 crowds. I went, you know what, you people fucking suck.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's my fault. And the crowd's waiting.
Yeah, I mean, even times where in hindsight, like everyone else will say it was a bad crowd, I think you can recognize that, but I'll never get off stage and not think about every possible thing I could have done to be better, even when I have a really good set.
Yeah, me too.
That's why a lot of times I don't listen back to some of if I'm trying to like get some material down or do a clip or something, I'll listen back.
Yeah.
But I don't listen back as a way of like improve. If it's like, oh, let me listen back to all my sets, because I feel like I'll listen back to a good set and I'll be more complacent than I would have otherwise.
Right.
This set was good.
Right.
But without listening back, I'm only second guessing.
Right.
Yeah. My dad has that. My dad's a pianist. He's a musician. He grew up like Juilliard, like classical pianist. And he's told me the same thing. He said he's always second guessing everything. And when he listens back to it, because he's used to listening to other pianists play, or he'll hear his verse that and be like, mine's actually kind of like those, so maybe it's not that bad. But he's like, I'd rather just have my initial reaction of being overly critical, because that'll keep you going. Yeah.
But I also don't like to, I always tell people too, also that can get too extreme and it can paralyze you.
Right, yeah.
Without taking chances, because you're too overcritical. But I listen to everything, because A, I'm always working on shit, but B, I listen to everything, even when I kill. Yeah. I listen back because I want to, it's like, okay, what was it that I connected with? Yeah. In that energy realm, on that plane, that murdered so hard. So I listen to the energy. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. Of the crowd. I listen to the reactions. I listen to how I put things together. I'm like, oh, that joke worked really well. How did I get to that point? Yeah. And then I break it down that way. But you know, I'm also critical. I listen to it once or twice, and then I can't anymore.
I mean, it's also everyone's process is different.
Of course.
Everyone's reactions to whatever it is going to be different. For me, it's just always been, and I think it's maybe because most people, before they get into comedy, it's like they're shy and introverted, and comedy helps them come out of their shell a little bit. Yeah. And then you'll see, I think the other side is you could be a confident person, and it humbles you. Most of those people, you see them at open mics and shows sometimes, they quit pretty early because they guess, like, I'm just going to go back to my life where I was awesome. I kind of came from athletics. I was like traveling as a pro wrestler. I was confident. I'm just so overly hyper competitive that when it like brought me down, I just stuck with it. But I think because I have that, I will listen back to stuff and kind of feel myself a little bit sometimes.
But see, that's okay. Yeah. To feel yourself, because that helps feed that positive part of you that you nurture. And like, that was awesome. I feel I'm feeling pretty good. Then you can take that and it'll push you to the next level. Yeah. And that can go extreme. Everything can go extreme.
Of course. Yeah. You have to keep it within balance. But yeah, for me, I always want to kind of stay. I'd never have listened back to a set and noticed a thing I didn't already think.
And I always tell people the best thing, every time I go on stage, people always ask me after all these years, do you still get nervous? Yeah. Fuck yeah, I do. Yeah. If I don't, one night I didn't get nervous. Everybody was killing. I bombed like Israel. Yeah. Is that too soon? Too soon, right? Too soon. Like, but I bombed hard. I'm like, how did I bomb? Because I was too I was just so not nervous, but I feed off that nervousness and I take it and I throw it and put the energy in there. And for me, I just walk into the club every night and I just humble myself before the craft.
Yep. Yeah. And it's, any night, you could have the thing that's worked 100 times before it may not work tonight, especially when if you already kind of go into it thinking, I know this is good. Yeah. You have to sell it like it's the first time you're saying it every single time.
It's like baseball. We play 162 games in a regular season. Yeah. every night every at bat is going to be something different.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hot night at the plate. You're going to have a hot couple weeks. And then there's going to be that slump. You're like,
Yeah.
none of this is working.
Yeah.
How the fuck is this not working?
Yeah, I think I make the baseball comparison. Everyone always talks about the batting average. Oh, 300 hitter and you're in the Hall of Fame or whatever. I just think of it as like the season. Like in a football season, 16, 17 games now.
Yep.
If you lose 2 or 3 games, you're 15-2. You're the best team in the league.
Yep.
I think of baseball, like the best team in the league loses 60 games.
Yeah.
Like, that's more like what stand-up is because it's every night.
And when you win 100 games, you're fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 90, 96 in that range. And like, oh, you're killing it.
Yeah.
But you win 100, 110 games, you're like, who the fuck are these guys?
Yeah.
It's like a magical year.
Yeah, and you had 60 bad nights in a 6-month period.
Yes, that's 2 months.
Yeah.
That's 2 months solid of non-stop, no breaks.
So if you're doing comedy for a long enough time, you're going to have years worth of bad sets.
Yeah, and for me, that's
If
how
you're one of the best, you'll have years worth of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and if you don't have bad sets, you're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing yourself. You're not taking risks. You're not challenging yourself.
I don't think there's anybody who's the even those people. They won't have bad sets, but they're never gonna have great sets.
Yeah.
There are some people who can coast on being good.
Yeah, they do the job.
Yeah.
Like, because I always tell people, I'm like, was there anything special about those comics?
Yeah.
Oh, they were really funny. Oh, who stood out? There was a girl, and I don't know. She said something about her boyfriend. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, then she wasn't special.
Exactly. What was this person's perspective? What's the unique take? Do you remember their name?
Yeah. I don't know their name. I don't know anything. I go, well, then they really weren't that special. Yeah. They did their job.
Yeah.
They killed it. They did their job the night and entertained you, but it really wasn't like cruise ship comics.
Yeah.
They're a dime a dozen because that's their genre. That's I did one and I'm never doing it.
Yeah.
Not for me.
I was on a cruise, not to do comedy, just like on a family vacation last year. And I've done a couple. My family's gone on cruises like every once in a while, and they'll like offer to take me with them and pay. And I'm like, sure.
Sure.
And the last one, I never go into the comedy show, but I was just walking around looking for something to do, and the comedy show was just starting. I walked in for like 20 seconds and turned around and walked out. So I walked in, and the person on stage was like, hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, I got news for you. Do you know there's a new stat that 1 out of every 3 people is ugly? Look to your left. Look to your right. If they're not ugly, guess who it is? I turned around and walked out and like, I am not watching any cruise ship comedy anymore.
Oh my God, that show is so 40 years old. Oh my.
At least.
Well, maybe 50 years
Yeah.
old. That's why I keep forgetting it's 2023.
Yeah.
I still think it's 2010.
Yes.
I'm wishing.
Yeah.
But it's so, but you know what? And that works for them. They make a great living.
Yeah.
But no one knows who they are.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends that work like my homegirl, Michelle Ballin.
Yeah.
She's the queen of cruise ships.
Yeah.
She's a monster on the cruise ships.
Yeah.
She came here, I ran into her at the Comedy Cellar, and she goes, oh, thank God, Christy. She goes, finally someone that knows who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that was just like a punch right in the face. Like, yeah, Christy, you don't want to get caught down that. I tried to make her feel better. I'm like, hey, girl, at least you're getting paid a lot of money to do what you love.
You are traveling the world.
You're seeing the world. You're doing what you love, And I go, who's better than you?
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, I never thought of it that way. I go, yeah. I go, we're all fighting over $50 spots and $10 spots.
Grass is always greener. Anytime I do road stuff, and I mean, we've taken Comedy Fight Club on the road. We had earlier this year, we had like a month or two where almost I think we only did 1 or 2 shows in New York, and we were in Philadelphia, did a Rhode Island show, Connecticut, did some Jersey stuff. All tri-state, anywhere we could drive to, we were able to get a show going.
Right.
We did Poconos, we did this year. And every time we're doing those, I'm like, fuck, are we becoming irrelevant in New York? But everyone in New York is thinking, God, I wish I'd be able to get on the road and do more stuff on the road.
Dude, they took it on the road.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no matter where you are, you're looking at what other people are doing. And because nothing that you're doing ever feels as good as what other people... When you look at what someone else is doing, you imagine it being the best thing possible.
Yeah.
When you're looking at what you're doing...
Social media.
Yeah, when you're looking at what you're doing, it's just kind of the thing you're doing.
Yeah, you're like, this isn't really that great.
Yeah.
Like people because people look at me and they go, dude, you're crushing it. I go, am I that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're like, you have an album out. It's doing great. Your podcast. I said, okay. Like, okay, if that's what you think, that's great. I think it's I could be doing a lot more. Of
course,
we
yeah.
can, and I'm not where I want to be.
Yeah.
But, I'm going in my own lane at
Yeah.
my own pace I'm a one-man band.
Yeah. As long as I can look and think I'm doing everything possible to keep building this and doing more, and I'm constantly working, and if I'm doing the same thing that's not getting anything, I'll shift and try something else, but I'm always doing something.
Yep.
As long as I'm doing that, that's kind of where my mindset is, and I don't really think about any of the, if this person thinks I'm doing well or not. That's,
I don't get
that's wasted energy.
Yeah, I don't think about that shit. Like, I don't care what other people are thinking. And then sometimes, like, I'll be like, God damn it, and I see things and I'm like, God damn it. Then I got to check myself. Christy, just shut up. Get over yourself. It's not that great.
I did a show like a couple months ago where it was like a small spot at QED in Astoria. I've done shows at QED. It's a fun spot. I have done a lot of shows there. And the comic one of the other comics on the show said they were surprised I was there because they didn't think I would do small spots like that anymore. It's like, how big do you think I am?
I know.
I was like, and QED's not like a bad spot. QED's fun.
Good spot. Yeah.
Good. I'm like, I want to do everyone. If I could do QED every night, I would. I'm not booked every night, so.
Yeah, I love doing small shows because for me, I'm writing a lot.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Like when you're doing the A rooms or on the road, you're bringing your A game.
Yeah.
You're killing them. But it's like, it's so nice to be able to, hey, Ed, the manager's here. It's so great to be able to like get intimate.
Yeah.
And people ask it like, you would do my show?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I never asked you because I thought we weren't good enough for you. And I'm like, girl, there ain't no stage that's too good for me.
Yeah.
A stage and a mic, I'm there. I don't care if it's at your family's house.
Yeah, if I don't have anything booked, I'll go.
I'm there, dude.
I did an open mic and someone was like, I was surprised to see you slumming it with us open micers. I'm like, I didn't have anything booked. I wanted to get on stage.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean slumming it? There's a mic and there's time.
Yeah.
It's a stage.
Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
Yeah.
But I love.
Well, there are comics I know who, once they start getting some shows, they stop doing mics because their thought is like, well, I'm not a person who does mics anymore. And I've seen it happen with people where I think they stop improving.
Yeah.
They're not
at that level yet to not doing mic. And they think they are.
Yeah.
But they're not. I'm almost 28 years in. If there's a mic tonight, I would get on it. Like, I'm going to hang out and do this mic because I'm not booked anywhere because I never book anything Sundays.
Yeah.
Because of the show. Because it airs on Mondays at noon.
Yeah.
So, but I love that you're here. And I love to wrap up the show with 2 questions I ask every comic because it's they're so fun.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I have a list of bits and comics that I have, and I like to hear other people's input. So is there a comic that has done a bit that you went, motherfucker, that's brilliant. I wish I had written that.
So I'll say when I just saw it like recently on Instagram, and it's a buddy of mine, Nick Simmons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Nick's great. He lived in New York for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's in Florida now. I think
he's in Florida.
I think he said he may be coming back to New York, but
he was in LA for a while.
Yeah, he was in LA.
He's doing great.
Yeah, and I just saw he posted a thing a couple weeks ago, and it was a joke about he has a Latina girlfriend, and I've dated several Latina women.
I don't know. My boyfriend's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, and he just had a bit about getting in an argument with a Latina woman and how you can never win the argument. And the bit he does is that it feels like they have an AK-47, and if you're a white guy, you're just there with a musket. They're just firing like, why did you? And you're just like.
Yeah,
you're rude. It's so good. I shared it on my Instagram this week because it was his birthday.
That's awesome.
It's one of those, as a white guy who's dated Spanish girls, it's just such perfectly encapsulates every argument I've ever been in. He took out the part where they throw blunt objects at you, but
a chancleta and all that shit, or a baby.
Yes.
But I love that. And also, because I opened for Paul Mooney for so long, Paul would wrap up his sets doing street jokes.
Okay.
But he would Mooneyize them.
Yeah.
So he'd add a little Mooney twist to it, and he would destroy. He would do like 3 or 4, and then wrap it up and go. Because he loved Mooney loved a street joke more than anybody ever knew. So I always ask, what is your go-to street joke?
So this goes back to when I was like in the car on the wrestling road trips. That was all we did.
Oh, of course.
But it was like one after another. So it wasn't as much like the long drawn out ones. It was the, what do you call it? Like a lot of those. And So when I first started, like before I did comedy, I would post like street jokes on my Facebook page because I never knew what to post on Facebook.
Sure.
And after a while, I started kind of coming up with my own jokes, but I wouldn't tell anyone because I was too embarrassed to write my own jokes. So it'd be like, here's a joke I heard. It would be one I secretly came up with. So and people started commenting like, you're really funny. You should try stand. The first time I did stand up, it was 5 minutes worth of my own like Facebook posts.
Nice.
But one of my favorites from back in the day was the what do you call the excess skin around a vagina?
A woman.
Yep.
Love
that one.
Oh, no, it's a great one. Like,
Great.
like, and there's the male version. What do you call the useless skin around a man's penis? The man.
There you go.
Oh, it's that. Yeah.
Those are the kind of jokes that a bunch of dudes on the road to a wrestling show were telling each other.
Of course.
I used to know like maybe hundreds of those. Just how do you stop black kids from jumping on the bed?
Put Velcro on the ceiling.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we do well. That was
Yeah.
How do you get a one-armed Italian out of a tree?
Wave at him.
Yep.
Yeah. Why are so many Italians named Tony?
Yeah.
When they came to America, they stamped 2 New York on their foreheads. Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. I love it.
You hear about the Chinese guy with the boner who ran face first into a wall?
Nope.
Broke his nose.
Good night. Oh, I love you, Matt. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you were here. Thanks for doing the show.
Of course. Thank you
You're
for having me.
adorable. I love you. I think you're so funny, and I hate everybody else. So
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And tell everybody where they can see you, where they can follow you.
Yeah. So at Real Matt Maran on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. At Comedy Fight NYC is the Instagram page for Comedy Fight Club, and that's where we have all the shows listed. YouTube.com/Comedy Fight Club to watch all the battles. And the Buff Boys podcast is me and Joe Gorman, and that's also on Instagram and Twitter, Buff Boys Podcast, and YouTube for the video.
Nice.
Yep. And Spotify, anywhere you get podcasts.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were here. And this has been another episode of Old School New School Comedy Podcast that we record sort of live here at the Comic Strip every week. And I'm just happy you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the show. We love you. See you next week.